Start recording. Alright. Sorry, lads. One moment. We're just gonna let people join in over the next course of probably 5 minutes. We've already got a significant amount of people. Welcome, everyone. Okay. Good amount of people. Yeah. Do a flip fan. My bad. Let me get up the chat just to make sure that everyone is represented in the recording. Thought you were gonna miss it? Yeah, no, you'd be good, dude. Do a second flip? I haven't got that in me. Alright. So once this minute's up, I will begin. Yellow, mellow, bellow. Jarvis, start the stream. Yeah. Heard there was one arena after this. We could do some questing afterwards, but I wasn't planning on doing any arena. I think that might be Pink's thing. Pig, that's on you. Then you crash your car. Okay, well, on that note, you flipped. Jesus. Okay. Anyway, on that note, welcome everyone. We are going to start this off by my personal favorite of the changes we have upcoming, which is going to be the quality of life update. So that's going to be one of the first ones that we have planned. I'm just jumping straight into it because I don't want to waste any of your time, especially since one of you crashed your car. So the quality of life update that we have planned is going to be this year. Anything that we discuss for this quarter will be what we plan to do this year. I can't speak beyond it. But yeah, this is the general direction that we're going to be going. Virgil, did you have anything to say? Oh, I guess not. He came off of mute for no reason. But yeah, the general idea for the quality of life update is going to be just improvements on every system that we have so far. So like the UI, for instance, like the dashboard was one of the first things that we did. Some of you might remember it. Snowrat, I know you were around for the initial update for it. I know that Zane, I think, was as well. Maybe it was a bit after Zane's time, but the main idea for it is that we're going to be having quality of life improvements for it. Don't take away our progress bar. No, in fact, the progress bar might be improved. The bar uses emojis to be able to represent it, and if we change those emojis, we might be able to make it look just a little bit better. So that's probably a good addition that we're probably going to do. We had it initially, but we didn't know whether or not people would like it, so we put it out for a test, and we never really revisited it. So we're going to be doing that. The other thing that we're going to be doing is that we are aware that people want to see there are player ranks in the system. You should be able to. I'm not sure why we haven't done that, but this will include that. You will be able to see your player rank there, so you'll be able to know when you have, when you are able to make a second character or a third character or get any of the player rank, rewards. You'll be able to know when you're able to do that. We're going to be adding in the entire Sidekick system into the dashboard, or the UI, or basically integrating it into the bot in any way that we can, because we're aware that right now it's run through Avray commands, and we want to kind of separate ourselves as much as we can from Avray so we have the most control over it, so we have the most editability on it. This will come with maybe some balance changes. We haven't really considered that yet. We just know for right now we want to integrate it into the UI. So there's nothing changed for anything balance wise in terms of what sidekicks you can get or what pets are sold in shops. But we're open to changing those possibilities. But for right now, we just want it in the system so we can control it. This will also come with the ability to be able to have your sidekick be able to gain XP. XP for your sidekick will be able to level up instead of having to train them all the time and having like arbitrary DCs. They'll also come with like a sidekick alias, quote unquote, where you'll be able to RP with them in specific. If you RP with them, then you'll gain XP for them, and they will level up concurrently with your character. That's just how it's supposed to work. Then the sidekicks will also have their own inventories, their own names, their own like when you RP with them, they'll have their own little image beside them, so you won't need to make tuppers. It's just a massive integration in general, and it'll probably be for the best for that sidekick system. The next thing we're going to be doing is sprucing up the downtime activities. We're aware everybody wants to harvest the humanoids. The answer's still no, so don't get your hopes up. You're not allowed to harvest the humanoids. But we will be allowing more like variety in the downtime activities, such as with mining. We're aware of the frustration people have when people mine and we make them make the strength check, and then we make the next check, and then they don't find anything, and it just seems like a waste of their time. So we're addressing that. We have a kind of like an observation check, and if you don't find anything, you don't have to use the strength check. That way, there won't be any way to... My bad. There's someone at my door.
Like,
yeah, my bad.
okay, I was like, did you cut out again? Because like I couldn't hear you until like I had to leave and come back. So I was like, what?
Did I cut out, lads? Could you hear me?
No, you didn't cut out. I couldn't hear
I
anything, and then
see.
I saw people responding in chat to stuff, and I was like, wait, like I'm not hearing anything. Like,
I
what are you
see,
all
I see.
responding to?
Sorry, I've been completely sidetracked. The mining system, yeah. So there'll be like an observation check, just like there already is, but if you don't find anything, you don't have to use the strength check. You don't have to actually mine anything, so you won't lose as much stamina. But if you do find something interesting, you can choose to mine it, and so when you make the check, it won't feel like it's done for nothing, or you wasted stamina for
Yeah,
nothing.
and for me I'm gonna chime in real quick on this one and to clarify, like when it comes to that and even like other downtime activities that we want to take another look at and spruce up, like fishing. What we recognize that one thing that seems that is rather unsatisfying from a player side of things is to do an out downtime activity, roll really high on all your checks, and then still end up with nothing. Like that feels bad, we get it. And that was more of a thing of like, hey, just because you're rolling well doesn't mean that there are fish that are biting type thing. But we want to make sure that the systems reflect both what we were trying to go for, which is sometimes there just isn't what you're looking for around, like even if you're really good at stuff. And so we're implementing we're updating the process of those downtime activities to reflect that without it feeling like you're
Awful.
being cheated because you're not being asked to roll and then rolling really high when you already know that there's nothing there to really be collected from a downtime
Mm-hmm.
activity. So we're trying to address the downtime activities in that fashion to make them feel more fair in the end and more enjoyable. So
Yeah, and now it will still take an amount of stamina points to survey an area for like looking for things that you want to harvest or etc. etc. Obviously, this won't. Well, actually, the example I used won't be doing that harvesting. If you want to gut something, you want to gut something, and if there's nothing to gut, you won't be able to run the command. So it's more for fishing. Like if you want to survey like an area, or mining, you want to survey an area. That's going to take an amount of stamina points, but it won't take all of them, and it won't take as much as the actual activity would take.
And we may even take a look at foraging to update that one to be a little bit more region specific, but no promises on that one. That's
Yeah,
lower on the list to
we know
do,
you
but
guys like
like
fresh fruit, but
yeah, but like just making certain plants like be specific to certain biomes, so that way like like oh if I'm in this biome like I have a higher likelihood of running into like blue leaf,
Mhm.
and so you can kind of start to tailor your own engagement with the downtime activities that way. Um, without getting into the whole thing, to Pink's question about fishing, really we wanna make fishing a more robust system. So having different levels of lures, for instance, that you could put on your fishing gear to increase your odds of getting higher end fish. Being able to take like we want to potentially implement essentially junk fish that aren't really used for anything other than being turned into bait. That's what I meant to say, not lures. I meant bait earlier. Being turned into bait, and like you can actually take some, even the fish that are used in other things. You can take some of the higher end fish and turn them into higher end bait, and so you have this whole dynamic. But in terms of interacting with fishing, like once you cast your line, it'll be a thing of like either nothing bites because there's still going to be a chance for that, and it'll just tell you without you having to like really roll for it, or it'll be like, oh, something's nibbling, make a roll to see if you snag it. And then after you snag it, it will tell you what's on your line because it'll like the premise is like it crests the water so you can see what you've hooked. And then from there you can get into what we want to try and implement is a contested battle with the fish. So you're going to be in contested checks against the fish that you hook on your line. And basically it's like a best of three, like almost like a arm wrestle contest. It's a best of three. Whoever wins three of the checks first wins. So if you manage to beat the fish rather, you'll reel it in, and if the fish beats you, it pulls off the line. So like giving you a little bit more information, allowing you to decide whether or not you want to, it's a fish you want to waste, more bait and energy and stamina on or not, but also like making the whole activity a little bit more dynamic and engaged. So each fish will have its own like strength stat and other such things applied to it that will affect the system. Um, but yeah, sorry about that, Fant. Go on.
No, no problem. I knew more about it than I did. Um, but yeah, that's generally our feel for the thing. We'll be rolling for the fish. In the
The
background,
system will roll.
in the background, the bot will roll for the fish. It'll roll over what you get, the same way like it rolls for items.
And the other thing that will happen in that, I forgot to mention, is we will be splitting up between saltwater and freshwater fish types. So
Yes,
similar to like I mentioned with the foraging, where you fish actually will, and even beyond that, we'd love to. This may not come in this phase, but like we'd even love to like have fishing spots that have different ratings of like how active the fish are versus whatnot and all that, like more or less active fishing spots,
and we will
but
not
also
remove
splitting
the
them.
silly items. You will still have to get a deed to an underwater city. Don't worry.
Yes, yeah. The silly items are staying. But yeah, like there we want to make most of those systems more involved. So like, instead of just fishing at the docks, like first and foremost, that would be primarily saltwater fish that you're going to get. So if you need something that requires a freshwater fish, you're not going to get that there. You're going to have to find a freshwater source. But not every freshwater source in the game is equal. So like you might want to start looking for a better freshwater source, and once you find one, you can start mainlining that. And then the same thing would happen with saltwater is you would have shoreline saltwater which would have its own rating, but then we'll actually have it to where you can charter boats and go out deep sea fishing and then have a higher chance of getting the higher end saltwater fish.
And there is always
So
the small chance that you could fish up a dragon turtle. You don't want one of those, unless you do want one of those.
I don't think the city wants you to reel in one of
The
those.
city doesn't want you to roll in one of those, but you will probably get back up from the city guard and then get arrested.
Anyway, that's most of the details I know when it comes to the downtime activity updates that we may or may not be making. But the gist of it is any system that isn't already integrated into our bot, we want to integrate into our bot um, for a setup for phase two for this year. But then as we're doing that, we're going to be taking a look at every single downtime activity and whatnot just to see if we can spruce them up and make them more engaging and fun
Now I will
to play.
say, they're after coming up with a funny idea that I'm not against, and we'll move on after this. But sewer fishing is a funny idea. But
I will have to think on that because
yeah, I'm not saying we'll have to say anything right now, but that's a funny idea.
sewer fishing sounds awful.
You will not catch anything you will want to catch. Let's see. Um, the other big thing that we want to address that a lot of people have given a lot of feedback on, and cranium fish, is the crafting system in general. We do want to revisit how the crafting system works, Sinatra. We want to revisit how you progress through like a craft, how you progress through the system in general. Now I will say Virgil has more ideas about that. He's the one who piloted it. Um,
Yes.
yeah. So yeah.
Mostly the system as it currently functions, like the actual function of the system, will likely not change all that much. It's mostly tweaking of it will most likely be tweaking of recipes, tweaking of like maybe adding a few things in there um uh for different use cases. Like if we want to we're considering adding in base level gear and equipment into there that are like basic things that you can craft if you really feel like it, but also like taking a look at the DC spread for different rarities of items and types. So, just trying to make sure that the system is where we want it to be, and isn't. We don't want crafting to be too easy because otherwise crafting becomes broken. But we also don't want crafting to be such a slog that nobody feels like doing it. So, like, we're
Yeah.
trying to figure out the balance of
One
that.
big one big complaint we get is like, oh, I got an item, what do I use it for, type thing. Whereas usually in TTRPGs or in RPGs in general, they or like MMORPGs, they will tell you like what they're generally used for, and there may be, and this is a maybe, there may be a system by which you could see the general uses for certain items, but not the specifics for like how to craft a legendary sword because it's a legendary sword. Why would you know what it is made of? Um, but like for instance, if you get some like iron ore, generally used for making things like swords and cooking pots and stuff like that, it will tell you.
So I to Sinatra's point about his comment in chat about it would be cool to take a +2 off of a shitty item and put it on a preferred item. That is actually not strictly crafting for us. That is actually a different system that we have been talking about in the background that
Enchantment.
we have not solidified, which is enchanting. We
Yep.
do eventually. This will not be addressed in this phase. I
It
cannot
is not. It
promise
mightn't
that.
even happen this year.
But we have been kicking around the idea of figuring out how to do enchantments. It's just a whole thing from inventory management and switching item IDs inside of your inventory for doing a process stuff that we need to figure out and how we want that system to work. But we are considering like kind of how like right now we have like low level enchantment system or a bare bones enchantment system where like you can take certain things and apply them to an item.
Like
We
weapon plus
actually want to
one.
turn that into its own mechanic that has a little bit more rules and allows you to do that, but also potentially for certain items. One thing I can say for crafting, one thing that we are considering doing is for certain types of items, not for every item, but like the easiest ones that I can think of are the standard +1s, +2s for weapons and armor. Is rather than having to like, let's say if you have a +1, rather than having to collect all the crafting materials to fully craft a +2, if you already have a +1 of an item that you want to make a +2 of, you can take that existing +1 and it can replace a number of components in the craft that you're doing,
Hmm.
the crafting session that you're doing to create the +2. So you can actually use an existing item. That's something we want to address with crafting and see if we can pull off, is use an existing item as a crafting component in certain cases. So like that's kind of the half step from enchanting. Like if we can figure that out for crafting, then doing enchantments will be an easier task from the back end side systematically. So that's something we want to try and attempt with the crafting system updates on the quality of life phase.
Yep. Unless Virgil has any more words about that, I will say, can I deconstruct my adamantine armor to get adamantine, or is that like an enchantment thing? I think that's a material thing, but
Yeah, and honestly, part of that is also looking at deconstructing to see, because I know it's not something that one thing that, like there's not a whole lot of examples, I think, unless I've just been out of the loop. Not many people do deconstruction, from what I can tell.
it's
So we
because they
haven't
do it
really.
once and then realize it's not worth it.
Yes, there it is. So we need to get deconstructing working. That'll be part of the quality of life thing for sure. And
Mm-hmm.
like we definitely do. It was always our intention when it comes to deconstruction to where like if you're rolling well enough on a deconstruction cycle, that you would get some materials, like some of the crafting materials back from it. But yeah.
Yeah, and as Beba said, there are things that can't be deconstructed or don't make sense to be deconstructed, like potions. That's like an alchemy
Now,
system almost, but
I will say that you can like I call it deconcoct, but you can deconstruct a potion, you just won't get any materials out of it. You will learn how the potion is made though.
yeah, you will get the
That
blueprint. Like you'll be able to distill what makes it, but you won't get any glass. But yeah, aka potions. Yeah. Um, Other than that, the next thing that we're going to be addressing in the quality of life update, the final thing I have on my list anyway, is the rules. So with the rules, we're aware there are a lot of rules. The big thing that me and myself and Virgil have me myself and Virgil, but myself and Virgil have done earlier this year was kind of go out and like re-segment the rules into what they should be in terms of viewability for the players. Mainly, and I can say this with confidence, mainly what the first joining player will be able to see when they join the server will just be pretty much getting started. That's everything they need to know. That's everything they will need to know for a long time until they engage more in the server to be able to create a character. Now, obviously, there are things that aren't in the getting started section that need to be, such as I think it's the reference to the banned and changed list, or the accepted books that we have, or the general rules of conduct. Um,
yeah, the general rules of conduct definitely should need
yeah,
to be added in.
so those will be added into that embed as well. But in general, the rest of the rules are going to be done through a /help command or a /rules command specifically. Um, if you've ever used any bot in Discord or you've even used Avery's help command, you'll know that it's not going to show you every single thing that it can do all at once and then bombard you with information. So we plan to segment that information into two things. One, a forum channel that is only viewable after you create a character, just so you don't get bombarded with that many rules immediately. And two, it's going to be in this help command or rules command. So if you wanted to look up, let's say, an item in D&D, you do the /item command, and then you write in the item, and then it'll give you the general rules of that item. That's essentially how this one will work, where you do /rules, and then it's like, what section do you want to bring up, and it'll be like roleplay section, and then you'll get the roleplay embed. It'll tell you the rules for roleplay.
And we will even be segmenting out. Like we'll probably do at least one layer deeper than that. Like for instance, if you
Probably.
wanted to be like rules, encounters, camping, right? How do you camp in encounter channels? Like, and the other thing that will be added into this because it's necessary for this functionality in the quality of life updates from a coding standpoint is autofill on commands. So like that is something that I know Kravik for sure wants to take a stab at and see if we can do.
You will no longer
So
mistype blue leaf.
right. You can kind of like start to type it and it'll give you a list of available options. I think it kind of we already have that functionality when it comes to the trading menu, so it's just a matter of applying that to every other thing
Yeah,
where you
the
log out.
things component is will be a thing of the past, hopefully.
Yeah. But yeah, so similar. So once we get that up and running, this rules command will also ideally have, like in its final state, will have a autofill function. So as you start to, like, if you type in counter, you'll see a bunch of different options already in the autofill feature of like what you could type in, and that'll help you narrow down like what you should be clocking in. But also that will have its own menu. So if you just do encounter, it will pull up a menu that basically goes like, okay, what specific thing about encounters do you want to look into, and it'll give you options. So like there'll be some fail safes there. We're trying to make that as user friendly as possible. Um, and the other thing is that we want to integrate it inside of the bot so that way we don't run into a situation where because if we want to connect what I'm just going to call the rules wiki that we have like in its own channel inside of the server that you could just look up on your own if you wanted to. You could scroll through it still. We're still going to have that. We want to have that connected directly to what our rules command inside of the backend on the bot is. So that way, whenever rules need to be updated, we update them in one spot and every instance of it gets updated. So there's never any disconnect between embeds or command prompts or anything like that. So that's another thing, is just so that way going forward, if any new rules need to be added or updated for any reason, we can update it in one spot and know that it's covered everywhere in the server that you can engage with it. So,
Yep.
um, yep,
Wait, having an Engramor wiki is a great idea. We know. Um,
it's
we
just work.
know it's a lot of work and possibly money.
Yeah.
Actually, it's not even possibly money; it's money. But yeah, unless Virgil has anything more on the quality of life issues, I will get further onto the onboarding process.
Yeah, go for it. I mean, this is all part of it. Like the onboarding process is a
Yeah, I was
subsection of
segueing.
all of it.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, I suppose we've already talked about it, but like the getting started section is going to be the primary section, and like any information that they need to have in there, like absolutely need to have, will be there. All irrelevant information or anything dealing with anything other than character creation or like the ways you should conduct yourself in the server will just be straight up removed. Um, Although I will say, because I know we have people come in and leave, and people who have concerns with how many people leave, I cannot, because I have tried, make it so that there is a more easy way to step by step go through the process. So I don't think much of that will be changing. There is a literal step by step process, and unfortunately, people just don't read. Um, but other than that, I'm good to move on to the next section.
Yep. I mean,
Sure.
the only other thing I can say from the lore keeper side of things is we've already your feedback on the second tutorial quest being super long and full
Ah,
of a lot of content has been heard. We are pushing, we will be pushing in this phase to get that updated and just kind of disseminate that separately. We're figuring out other ways of doing it, to where like similar to this principle from an OOC standpoint in character, you're not getting info dumped right out of the gate more than what you actually need to know about. So like our plan is to split up that tutorial to where, you know, you'll still have that intro, it'll give you some basic info and some lore about what's going on so you have context, and then it will set you off to like start adventuring. So it might like cover a little bit of lore, encounter channels, and then quests. And then what we'll do is we'll have other tutorial quests that can pop up that you can take a look at if you so choose when you enter other areas where you would be encountering that activity or mechanic. So like for instance, if your character takes their first step inside of the Mage Smith Union, that would be probably one of the first times that a crafting tutorial prompt would pop up for you so you can learn about crafting if you want, as opposed to it being connected to this very big tour quest.
Yeah, like if
So
you, for instance, if you enter like certain locations that aren't like, standard, like, if you enter the docks, I'm sorry, we're not going to take you through the docks. Um, I think we currently do, but it's not going to be one of the more important ones as Virgil's talking about. But if you go to the Silver Sky Manor, there might be a pop-up quest upon you first entering there, um, where it describes how, it is and what it looks like and where things are, etc., etc.
Yep.
Yep.
So a little bit more of a less of a fire hose and more of a steady drip of information.
Yeah, like a drip. Like for instance, like in Skyrim, people start telling you about the location when you enter the location. But I will say, as for what Pink recommended, a scheduling calendar for the dashboard. I mean, it's a cool idea. It's just not up there because the calendar app exists, and you can just kind of ping people saying this is when you're available, or tell people. It's not a bad idea. I could see a world in which you had like a role that's set inactive and then it changed automatically when like certain dates are hit. I could see that, but it's not something that we're particularly going to aim for with all the things we've already laid out being things that, the things we're going to lay out further in this discussion.
Yeah. I'd have to, and honestly, that's the first time I've ever considered that
Yeah,
as a
I will say that's a really good pull.
yeah, that's the first time I've ever considered that as a feature. So like, it's more of a not right now, not necessarily a no, because like I gotta sit with it and also talk to the coders to see like what would be the best way of executing that. So there might be later on in the year as we get further along, we might bring that back up in a future Q&A and be like, hey, we actually want some feedback and ideas on like what if we were to go through with this feature, like what would be the most useful version of that for everybody. But yeah,
Hmm.
so not a bad idea. It's just not something that is on the docket at all. So it will take a
It's not
bit
something
to.
we've thought about, and these things are things we've taught about, so they're necessarily going to be behind that. We haven't spoken
Yeah.
about them. But other than that, the next thing that I have is more gold and items.
Oh my God, you really had to do that?
Yes, I did. Um, the more golden items is going to be a more in depth way of like rewarding the player. It's going to be like um, I get my gauntlets of ogre strength. Sinatra gets his flame tongue weapon. Stuff like that. Obviously, it won't just be giving it to you, but it will be able to drop more gold because we feel like giving you more gold is a better way for the economy to currently work with the way the trading system is currently, the way that the economy is in terms of shops. The limiting factor really was us not trusting that we didn't have all our bases covered with the players and that the players would find some way to game the system or have so much gold that they didn't know what to do with. And we have found through a lot of people playing, as all beta tests do, that we have covered everything we can. And so we think that giving you a little bit more gold to a lot more gold, depending on if it's deadly or easy, probably won't break anything. And so we're okay with giving you more gold. As to do with items, thought we were smart. Yeah,
Just,
fair enough.
just to chime in, you're already
Mm-hmm.
seeing some of that. You've already, if you guys have been playing some of the automated quests, like the actual quests, not the job level ones. You're already seeing some of that testing of like updating the gold because all of those automated quests give more gold than their non-automated counterparts for the same rank and yada yada yada. So we kind of already soft tested that with the implementation of the current set of tests, automated quests. Oh, and I forgot to mention, I don't know if you mentioned it because I also wasn't here for the first start of it, but part of the quality of life phase is us getting everything automated quest wise. So there will be no manual quests
Ah,
after
yes. Sorry, I
the,
did
the
forget that.
quality of
It's
life phase is done.
I did forget that. Yes, I mean it seems more like an obvious thing for people who've been here, but yes, every single no manual fighting. No, there will be
No,
manual
no, no. You're still
fighting.
gonna have to manually fight. You can't just fight on autopilot. You
Yeah.
gotta.
Good. Yeah. No, we don't have an AI running the characters. They'd kill you.
No, no.
Um, because I already have to stop Virgil from killing you. I can't stop a unfeeling machine.
You can't stop me and Skynet, fam.
Yeah, exactly. But essentially, what it'll be is that all of the server will have 5 quests, except for the Adventurers Guild, which will have 10 quests because everyone's in it.
Yep.
Yep.
And that's to start. Like, this is us getting through the quality of life phase. I will say this from the lore keeper side of things on the quest side is yeah, what Fant just said is correct. That is like for the quality of life phase, our aim is to get 5 much more replayable and engaged and involved and lengthier quests. Not all of them will be this length, but you're going to see more quests of the length and complexity of things like gentrification, if you've played it. And so like that's why we're also going to narrow it down at first to like each guild outside of the Adventurers Guild is going to have 5. But eventually we are probably we are kicking around updating how the quests are integrated into things like the guilds, and having certain like we've been floating ideas like having rank up quests. So instead of you just earning rep, you actually have to complete a rank up quest. And once you do, and even things like okay, once you're certain ranks, new quests open up for you. So like not just based off of your level, but like based off of how well you are known inside of a guild, certain jobs and certain quests will start to open up to you that previously weren't available. And so our goal will funnily enough like it sound like in all likelihood once we are finally done doing all of the quests and doing the guilds the way what we want, you will probably end up with more quests per guild than you currently have, but you won't see all of them because some of them will be rank locked. um and also the implementation of like weeklies and stuff like that and all of that. So
Would the rank up quest be retroactive? Um,
I think I know what Snowhead's getting at. If
I
you're
think I do.
already at current rank inside of a guild before we implement that change, your ranks will stick. Like you're not gonna have to go redo those
No,
quests
he means he wants
just
to
to.
do the quest. That's what he's
Oh,
saying.
he wants to do them? Oh, I mean, like if you want to do them, but like you're not gonna be. It's gonna be that thing where like you're not eligible for rewards because you already got it. So if you want to do them, you can. But
I mean, I don't know if Snorad, is that what you wanted? You were like, I want to do the quest. Is that? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I mean, sure.
okay.
We'll just take the rewards off of you
Yeah,
afterwards.
like yeah, that's fine. Like,
Fine. Like whatever.
but
Um,
all of those rank up quests would be solo, just so you're
yeah,
aware.
they're all solo because they're about you. But as for Pink talking about the haggling system, that's a
Yes.
beef between him and Kravik.
Yeah. No. 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 I have it. I have it, and I'm saying this mostly because I'm pretty sure that I've already won the argument. Haggling will be part of the quality of life update, so that
Okay.
will happen. And
Okay.
I'm gonna say it, and if Kravik wants to be mad at me later, he can. But like we have talked about this enough times, and it's literally just a thing that needs to be tested it and to make sure that it works. And it's just something that they like keeps being missed when we're updating stuff. So like part of the quality of life will also include finalizing the testing for haggling and then implementing it.
Mm-hmm.
That.
What's he gonna do? Code angrily? I mean, quickly and angrily. Yeah, sure. Um, but also to Sinatra's 15 to 20% decrease in price for rare and higher grade items. I think a 15 to 20% increase in gold is the same thing, but you know.
Yes.
So, I mean, in fact, I think in most cases we're doubling the gold, right? Like it's gone from like 100 to
Yeah.
200. Like,
Yes. And sorry, I kind of derailed us talking about quests. We were talking about gold, and then you were gonna talk about the increase in loot. Once you talk about the increase, I can talk about how we're gonna vary up the loot system because I have a pretty good handle on like where we're headed with that. And
mm-hmm.
but go on.
Yeah. So I know we're all fuck Kravik in the in the in the side real quick, but he does make a good point where he says He says, my character is level 20 and I have a +2 item. Like, it doesn't make any sense for my character to do this, and nor did I have to spend this much time getting a +2 item for my level 20 character. The progression seems a little bit, off and tilted. So at the very least, you should get these items probably a little bit earlier. Now, we're not saying that we're necessarily going to increase the amount of times you'll get items, especially like rare and uncommons. But when you get them, they will be of better value usually. Like we have you getting a lot of, and I forgot to mention this because we keep going back to quality of life update. You know what we won't have? A billion blueprints being given to you, a billion recipes being given to you.
Oh, I thought you were going to bring up the component pouches.
No, because that's already fixed. No component pouch. However, we might have and this is a thing from my end, so I'm okay with saying it. We might have a little meme competition to see who can have the best Angramore meme, and we might make that into a sticker or an emoji. And if somebody submits nothing but a component pouch, they win. If that's it, then oh yeah, this is, you haven't been here, Virgil, but this is a big thing: is that the component pouch of holding.
Yeah, that's
uh,
honestly, that would be hilarious.
Yeah, the component pouch of holding. Fantessa and Zane should be have better gear at their level. I hit the fall off at level 7. Yeah, I mean, I have uh Solarian and Virgil has a child. That's what we got.
So anyway,
But yeah.
weird reference. But so yeah, so part of that will be there will probably end up being a slight increase in overall loot drop chance.
Yeah.
But on top of that, what we are going to be doing is refining how loot drops occur and what kinds of loot drop in certain instances. So, one thing that will be happening more of, and there's some instances of this already in the automated quests, is loot rolls occurring inside of quests. So, not that you will always get a loot roll at the end of each quest that you do, but there is a higher probability that if you're going through a quest that you're gonna probably get a loot roll on top of the gold um that you would normally get, gold rep and war assets. So there's that addition, but on top of that we are planning on basically establishing different parameters based off of when you're engaging with the loot system. So if you're just doing a standard encounter, your loot pool is going to that's probably going to be where your loot pool is the widest, right? Like because you're just out in the wilderness, you could run into anything. So your loot roll pool for encounters will be the broadest it can be. We are going to try and do our best to limit the amount of junk items you get from loot. We're not going to eliminate it completely, but even in terms of encounter loot, we want to lower the odds of you just getting completely useless junk from the loot roller. So that way encounter loot feels better overall, even if you are just getting a common or mundane item. It's a more useful common or mundane item that isn't a component pouch, for instance. The other thing is in terms of the blueprints is segmenting out different loot types. So and I've mentioned this before in some other, I think in the previous Q&A and probably to other people, but like we have loot chests and we have loot chests that we want to implement, which will be necessary for things like dungeons, but also loot chests can be a thing that you encounter out in the wilderness too. Um, and then those chests will be down to different types, and we want to treat them a little bit like mini games. So like they might be locked in a mundane way, they might be locked in a magical way, and they might not be locked at all, they might be a freaking mimic.
You might finally have
Like
to use the spell knock.
yeah. But like so
Are
like
they
you can
paid to
encounter loot
play?
chests in the world, and you will potentially have to do a minigame with them, but there will also be at least two different types of loot chests. There will be a regular loot chest that'll just be like a chest, and then there will be a scroll case. And the scroll cases will be the ones that either have spell scrolls, blank or otherwise, and or blueprints. So now we can segment the blueprint drops into a specific category and therefore not have basically the chance of getting a blueprint, for instance, will be next to zero from an encounter. But if you encounter a scroll case that is a chest, then you know the minute you open that, the odds of you getting a blueprint are pretty high. And we'll start to play around with that balance of different types and categories of loot based off of use case, as we get into this. But that's kind of how we're thinking about approaching it, is tweaking the loot drop chance in general, but then segmenting out loot types in different engagements and use cases, so that way you as the player kind of have a better idea of like, okay, if I'm just running around doing encounters, I could get anything from like a common item to some rare random thing. But if I'm encountering a chest, it's going to be this. If I'm doing it in a quest, it's more likely to be these things. And like if I'm doing it in a horde, like my odds are actually like closer to this, and yada yada yada. So like that's kind of what we're looking at when in terms of updating loot overall. Did I miss anything, Fan?
No, I don't think so. I think we're okay. No more 12 gold hordes. No, it's
No
24
more
now.
12 gold ports. Correct. I have also been a victim of that. So like I no.
Yeah, see, he got. I know Zane got 12 gold, but Virgil got, I think, less or equal than that, and then someone else got a very rare item.
Yeah, it was not a good time. So
Yeah.
definitely making sure, because like if we can do that, then we feel a lot more comfortable. And as Fant said earlier when talking about the gold thing, and I've said this before, and on a number of occasions, whenever we make stuff, we err on the side of caution in terms of how we balance it, and then we kind of wait to see how things play out. And 9 times out of 10, we realize, okay, we can ease up on that and make this a little bit more, you know, friendly, less restrictive, less stingy. That's the word I'm looking for. We can make it less stingy. So,
Yep.
but that's phase two. So we do quality of life, which is a lot of the other stuff that we talked about, including the full automation of quests. So no more manual quests. And then the loot update, and then which is part of phase two, and then the other half of phase two, I will let Fant talk about.
Yep. So we have. I assume we have no more line questions or anything. I will just assume that.
And for loot chests, we're not talking about it in the way that like games like mobile games do it. Like it's not a loot chest that you pay for. It's literally a chest that you encounter in the world.
Yeah.
Like a real thing that you're encountering. It's not a thing that you pay for OOC and then you gamble.
I mean, the whole system's a bit of gambling, but it's not gambling for you, like financially, just temporally. Um, I just gamble IC. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The next thing that we're going to discuss is a little bit more interactive than the other three. We're pretty much going to do the XP and loot balance, the onboarding process, and the quality of life update. Sorry?
You didn't actually talk about XP yet, to my knowledge.
I didn't talk about XP. You're right.
That's what I was leading you to, is to talk about XP.
Okay. You have 10 minutes left. I'm going to try and get through this. So for XP, we want everything that you mechanically do to have some sort of XP impact, right? So like crafting or questing or danking, we all want them to give spot XP. And some more than others. Like for instance, you'll get a lot of XP for a crafting material, or sorry, not a crafting material, a crafting project over the time of it being crafted. But you'll get the XP for when you engage in the system, not just at the end when you craft it. So things like that. Quests will give XP, so like depending on like the tier of the quest, like gold, blah 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 blah, you'll get more XP or less XP. You'll get XP for denking, depending on if it's more if it's deadly, less if it's easy, things like that. So it's basically just going to be an expansion on XP on all fronts. Now this will result probably in us keeping the current thresholds we have, reducing the amount of RP XP that you get, but increasing the thresholds for the amount of XP you get through these mechanics. Because before it was.
Let me clarify there, Fan, on something. In all likelihood, RP XP, as you understand it, will go away. And what I mean by that is that you will not be getting direct XP from your RP. What will more likely than not happen, as we've been looking at how to balance the XP system and still account for RP, whatnot, is, and this is why we need to do the quality of life first before we do this update, is we need every single activity that you do to be integrated into our bot. So that way our bot knows every time you do something. And so that way it knows to give you XP, how much to give you. Now, as Fant mentioned, each activity and based off of the difficulty, because like for instance, an encounter, if you roll an easy encounter versus a deadly encounter, those will give different XPs, different amounts of XP. Just because the difficulty is different. But encounters themselves will have their own band or range of XP that they can provide. Uh, Either way, the way that RP is going to interact with that system is, since the bot knows every time you are getting XP, and the bot also knows how much you're RPing because we've already coded that in. What it will do is we will basically have a rate system that we will create in the back end, that the amount of RP, the quote unquote quality of your RP that we've been tracking thus far and has been the basis for XP, will still be monitored by the bot. And then basically
Oh my god,
between.
Kravik is typing.
Oh, wow. Is Kravik in here?
No.
He's just typing.
Oh, wow. Yeah, honestly, I fair enough. I agree.
Get absolutely called out.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Just so Kravik knows when he's watching back, like he can watch back, but like we weren't really talking shit about Kravik. But anywho, what will happen is basically if you go fishing, you'll get XP for that, right? However, if you are to fish one time and then do a bunch of RP and then go do a quest, right? The bot knows that you did an activity, then you did a bunch of RP, and then you completed another activity. And it will take the amount of RP that happens and the quality of it, because it's still going to measure the length. It'll take the amount of XP or RP and the quality of that RP, and it will basically turn that into a modifier for the XP that you'll gain on the next activity that you trigger and complete. So your RP will increase the amount, or only increase. We're not gonna trust me. I'm the mean one in the staff.
He is the mean one.
I'm the mean one because part of me, I was the one that started to argue about like maybe there should be a negative modifier. I got vetoed on that. But basically, RP can only increase the amount of XP.
See, I don't even know what he's talking about, and I know he's wrong.
But basically, your RP will act as a modifier or multiplier to the amount of XP that you get from an activity, and it's going to be more likely than not, tracked between activities. So it'll be like, oh, you completed this activity, then this much RP happened before this next activity was completed. That RP augments the XP that you get from that activity.
Mm-hmm.
So RP will still factor into your XP gain, but you actually have to still like do something in the world. Almost completely gone pretty much will be the days of you sitting in the tavern yapping for 3 hours and then leveling up because of it.
Yeah, we kind of don't want people to be RPing about their nebulous backstory for once a day, every day for 3 years and be level 20. But yeah, is there any more on XP? Or... Oh, he's gone silent.
Or loot or XP, because that's phase 2. Phase 2, loot and XP is stage 2 for us.
Mm-hmm.
Stage 1, quality of life. Stage 2, loot and XP. So
correct. Does it reset after rest or something? Like, do you do... Yeah, I mean, all stuff will reset on rest. Like, all stuff will probably always keep that, like, standard. Mm-hmm. Also, hello, Kravik. He is in the chat.
Oh, nice. Does he want to comment in chat?
I think he's busy.
Okay.
But, yeah. So, that's what we have for for XP and loot, and also gold. I guess it's part of loot, but unless there's any other questions, we'll be moving on to our more interactive announcement.
Yeah, well, there's two more things to cover on this one. And these two things are larger discussions with you. And I'm just gonna preface this. I don't know if Fant said this at the beginning, but there will be a survey that's gonna go out after this. And I'm not saying directly after this. You'll get an announcement for it because I still gotta flesh out the survey. But we'll be doing a community survey. The next two topics that we're about to go through will be things that we will be asking your input on in that survey for sure. So,
like Zane survey, no, because we're actually going to send this one. I think I got missed. Will you be altering the sheer amount of stamina crafting takes, especially cooking?
I mean, it's not off the table. It's not something like the one thing that we have talked about is the case of cooking. Cooking taking as much stamina as regular crafting does seem like it probably needs to be looked at.
Blacksmithing and cooking pasta is not the same.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, yes, heard on that. I can't make any definitive. I can't tell you exactly how we're going to address that, but we are going to be taking a look at everything from a rebalance and update standpoint. So, chances are that will come up. I just don't have any answers for you right now as to like how we're going to change that for sure. But I definitely agree with you. Like, it's something that I've mentioned in staff meetings where it's just like, yeah, when we're talking about crafting, like cooking being the same amount of stamina as crafting kind of doesn't feel right. So it'll be on the docket.
Yep.
But yeah, I guess before I get into the rest of the meat, we'll wait to see if anybody else has any things about loot and XP.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on what you're cooking. I agree with you though. But all right. So next big thing. So this is what we're calling this section is our third feature. So we've been talking about these things in phases, like we kind of call them phases. So what is going to be our feature focus for phase 3? Um, so we have two options that we want to potentially address, or we want to try and take a stab at, but we can't do both of them in a timely manner. And we kind of wanted to see where the server was at for either of these. So what I'm going to do now is detail to the best of my ability our ideas for those two systems, and then like I said in the survey, there will be a chance for you to make your preference between the two known, as well as provide any sort of feedback or thoughts on those systems as they have been presented. I will also say that like these are where what I'm about to present to you is what our ideas are currently at. Nothing about balance or numbers or DCs or anything like that have been talked about. This is just conceptual. And as always, the asterisk that I put on everything that we talk about here is since everything that we make that's new is in beta, all of it's, subject to change if we feel like it needs to be changed or updated or tweaked and yada yada yada. So with all that preamble out of the way. All right, I guess Pink's leaving.
Pink has to leave because they're break.
Yeah. So the two systems, I'm just gonna lay them out. I'm gonna give you what they are.
I'm recording, by the way, so it doesn't matter.
Yes, yeah, you can, and that's also will be referenced in the survey. We're gonna get the recording out, and that way like we can have sections in the recording, and we will actually put links to those sections in the survey. So like if somebody who was taking the survey wasn't here or wasn't here for this part, they can actually go to this section in the video and hear us detail it out, so that way they have all the context they need to give answers and feedback. Okay. So for phase 3, the two options that we have in terms of new features, these are new features that we are considering implementing. Our two options right now that we're presenting to you are crime and punishment, a system for you to commit
do crime.
to do crime, but also potentially be punished for doing crime. The other one is player-owned businesses. So I'm just gonna go with crime and punishment first and talk through where our heads are with that. And Fant, feel free to keep me honest.
Mm-hmm. The
So
Meloria store, yeah.
um, so I'd say before we get into criminal activity, the first thing that we will need to cover is how we're thinking about punishment working and how being apprehended for crimes would work. So if y'all are committing crimes, there obviously needs to be a chance of you getting caught and punished for that. So while you're doing one of the downtime activities that we would create for crime, so like thieving, pickpocketing, robbing stores, that kind of stuff. I'm not including murder just yet on that list.
You kind of already do that.
Yeah. And also like this can also come up in quests. Like eventually the goal would be to have some interaction between these systems and quests based off of certain choices that you're making in a quest. Like if you decide to do something illegal as part of a quest, you know, chain, the guards could still show up if you're doing that. So basically the what will happen is if you're doing an activity that is criminal in some fashion and you get caught in the act by the guards or somebody else who isn't a guard. So there's two different scenarios that we're considering. Either a guard can catch you in the act themselves, or a citizen can catch you in the act and start to alert the guards. Um, and then if the guards catch you in the act, uh, it'll play out pretty much like you would think. The guards will attempt to apprehend you. You will have the option right then and there to either surrender or attempt to flee. If you attempt to flee, they will give chase, which will have its own little sets of checks, some contested checks against the guards to see if you can get away. And if those fail, then you can either surrender at that point because they have cornered you, or you can try and fight your way out. That will be an option. Just know that if you try and fight your way out, whatever charge you had is going to escalate. Uh,
Yeah, so
the
essentially
other
you'll
option,
have stairs in
yeah,
the
kind
guard.
of. And the other option that you will have that we want to be able to implement is the ability to attempt to bribe the guards. Until you attack them, you will not be able to bribe them if you choose to fight them at that point. Um, but if you surrender at any point prior to that, you can attempt to bribe them. That will come with its own risk of potentially increasing your charge if you're bad at bribing. Um, because trying to bribe a guard is also against the law. So there's that. The third option is you surrender completely and they take you to jail. Uh, so,
Mm-hmm.
but basically you can attempt to fight them if you manage to either flee easily and or fight your way out. Um, sorry, I got distracted. Flee if you manage to flee the first time or fight your way out and get away. The next question will be whether or not the guards manage to identify you. Now there is another system that we would like to be able to implement eventually that could connect this entire thing. A whole system around disguises. I can't say for sure that when we implement crime and punishment, disguises will be ready. So suffice it to say, if the guards see you, we will be operating under the assumption that you have been identified until disguises get integrated into this. But if and when disguises do come into play, you can kind of get around this particular problem, or at least attempt to, by donning a disguise before you commit crimes. So that way, whatever physical description they have of the criminal is not accurate to you unless you're dumb enough to wear the same disguise later. But anyway, uh, you will be counted as identified. If you manage to get away, a bounty will go out for you, and that bounty will be a thing that other players can bring in. But that bounty also means that if you're walking around the city with a bounty on your head, every time you're moving about the city, there will be rolls happening on the bot side to see if a guard or some other person notices that, hey, this person has a bounty, and then they will attempt to apprehend you. So,
Puts on a big pink
bounty.
hat with a feather.
Yeah, yeah, like, Virgil should not commit crimes because he's way too easy to identify.
Takes off big pink hat with a hat. Feather.
No one knows who I am. It's the Clark Kent principle. Um, anyway, so I'm just reading through my notes here. I went over bounties. Okay. So all that to say, and I will say that, we were already accounted for. We're planning on having it as part of the system. You can commit heinous enough crimes to where your bounty could be dead or alive. So keep that in mind. Like, if you do enough horrible stuff, the guards will be like, "Nah, just kill them. Like, as long as you bring me a body, I don't care." Like, um, but the other thing is like your criminal history will be a thing that we will attempt to track to some degree. So when it
Especially in
comes
things like DM
to
quests.
right, when it comes to your sentencing, because you will have like once they do apprehend you and get you to jail, there will be a whole sentencing process that will have to happen, but the bot will be tracking if you've committed other crimes and been convicted of them or caught for them. And so even when it comes to like attempting to bribe the guards, if you're a known criminal at this point, it's going to take a lot more gold and a lot more effort to bribe a guard. If you're a known criminal and you get caught and thrown into one of the jails, your sentencing will get harsher as your criminal rap sheet increases. So keep that in mind. um, and then once you're actually in jail, you will have to essentially do jail quests. The way that we're going to do it is it's a combination of you will probably have some form of gold fine that you will have to pay outright. And if you don't have the gold on your person to pay off, then that will get added into what we are calling your work debt. And you will have a work debt that you have to work off. And the way that you do that is by doing jail quests. So you will be stuck in jail until you work off your debt to society in various ways. And so there will be a number of jail quests that you can do that are basically dailies that you can, work off your debt and then get released. The other thing that may be possible later down the road as we build out this system and make it more robust is chances to attempt to escape jail, which obviously comes with its own thing of like now you have the crime of be escaping prison as part of your rap sheet. So just know that depending on like if you escape, you will probably end up with a bounty on your head. So like you're just playing dangerously. But
It does, however, offer the idea that if you then did a DM quest that led to the savior of the city, you might be pardoned.
yes, there are, and with that, I don't have this in my write up, but it was kind of assumed there will be opportunities to have your record expunged in under certain circumstances, but those aren't. Not all of those circumstances are things that we can implement yet, so I wasn't going to go into detail on that. But yes, there will be a process for potentially expunging your record in various ways. So, yeah, but you can attempt to. We want to give you the opportunity to attempt to escape from jail if you really want to. And even having, but that's a complicated thing because you will be stripped of your gear when you're put into jail. Like, we'll obviously keep it on hold. It's not like you're losing your gear necessarily, but like it's not like you're gonna have your focuses and your armor while you're in prison. So um, there will be a whole involved process there for you to even attempt to escape or whatnot. There's that part, which is the punishment part. I'm obviously covering it broadly. There's a lot more detail in here that you may or may not care about. So I'll save that for questions. And then we have crimes. So we basically have three categories of crimes right now that we're looking at, which is petty theft and pickpocketing. So like pickpocketing would be going into crowded areas like the market square. You would do something like an insight check to see who a good mark is amongst the crowd, and then you would have to attempt to rifle through their pockets. So either a combination of stealth and a sleight of hand, or deception and sleight of hand are where our heads are at right now. With it, we could obviously expand on that as we get more into it. Um, each mark will be randomly given a loot value, uh, basically what you could possibly pull from their pockets. So basically, we're talking about like, are they a lower class person, a middle class person, or an upper class person? Like, are they going to have heavy pockets or light pockets? Um, and then that loot value will be weighed against the insight roll to determine the DCs, the insight roll that you do to determine the DCs for the subsequent checks. So basically, system will roll. You do an insight check plus the mark, and your insight check, if it's really high, even if the mark is somebody that would be more aware and more, conscientious, because, you're going to have different variables of that. Like, you're going to have rich people that are not too conscious of their gold, and then you're going to have rich people that are very, they're kind of stingy, so they're gripping their gold for dear life all the time. And so like there will be a base DC set by what mark is what mark you roll randomly, and then your insight check will work to lower that DC essentially. And that DC will then be what is used against your subsequent stealth and sleight of hand or deception and sleight of hand checks. When it comes to robbing stores and establishments, this is more about trying to find the right moment to attempt to steal something, as well as like figuring out what you want to steal. So, you could steal from one of the shelves if it's a store, for instance. So you'd try and do like a perception check, or potentially an insight check as well, to determine a good time, like a good moment of like, oh, the store people are distracted. I can swipe this off the shelf and get out real quick. You can do a shelf swipe, which will just be like a sleight of hand type thing. Or you can attempt to sneak your way to their coin chest for the store, and that will yield you a higher result in terms of what you can swipe. But it comes with greater risk because you also have to like pick the lock and do all these things, and all of those activities will, subsequently increase the likelihood of you getting caught in the act. So there's some risk versus reward there when it comes to stealing from establishments. Murders. Yeah, I kind of covered that. Like, you can kind of like the way we're thinking about this is if you're just starting a fight in the street for no reason between players, like we also want to give the players an option to quote unquote call the guards in certain cases. So like like one thing that we've been floating around is giving you a there's a fight command basically to go like, hey, these two players are, because we talked about like potentially like, oh, if there's if an encounter starts,
We have a
if
snitching
initiative
command.
right, if the problem was is we originally were talking about if initiative is started in a non-encounter channel, the guards would eventually like have a chance to be called, but we also know that there's certain quests that have you roll initiative in non-encounter channels, so that could get really weird and annoying. So right now where our heads are at is giving players a command to where if you want to report two people fighting to the guards, there's a command for that now, and it can initiate the guard showing up. Um, and then they'll just apprehend all parties involved in any sort of physical conflict, and then it'll get sorted out once you guys are in jail, and we'll figure out who the perpetrator was and yada yada yada. It'll be a whole process. And then obviously things like fishing without a license, but that stuff will not be, unless you really want to escalate it for some reason. That stuff will not be a hey, you're going to jail. It'll be mostly a hey, you're not allowed to do that. Here's a fine, or maybe a warning if it's like your first time and you're, sufficiently like we might give you a persuasion roll for that one to see if you can get off with a warning because it's a minor infraction. But that one will just be a fine. They'll just fine you outright on the spot.
Also, to be
Unless
clear,
you-
Sonder, the moon is not a valid excuse.
No, the moon will not be a valid excuse.
Maybe
Not
in
even in
Lunaris.
Lunaris.
Oh.
No, not even in Lunaris. In fact, I feel like you'd have less of an excuse in Lunaris. Like they're like everybody kind of sort of worships the moon here, and not all of us are criminals. So shut up. Like,
I also, can I fish fishing in the Moon Tier Lake? He goes, the moon. He goes, yeah, no shit, it's the Moon Tier Lake.
yeah. Like I said, there's a whole other idea about a disguise mechanic and also revealing disguise as a mechanic. I can get into that, but that is a tertiary system that would then be added to this. That's kind of its own thing. Um, and then, of course, any sort of criminal organizations that we introduce into the world will interact with this system in their own unique ways as well. So that is the gist of Crime and Punishment as it currently sits. Did I miss anything, Fant, like that you think is important?
Well, there is that one thing connected to that, but
Okay, that's vague enough to where I don't even know what
crime.
No, I already said that. So, like, criminal organizations would have their own interactions with this system.
Yeah, so that first thing you said, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I'm not. I can't reveal any of those secrets.
Okay,
So
cool.
shut up.
Okay. That's cool. Okay. No, it was not the end.
Criminal
That was the
organization.
first option, Pink. So essentially, crime.
Yes.
You can do crime, and you might get punished for it, but you also might avoid it, and you also might be able to avoid punishment after you're found out. There you go. Summary.
Yeah. So that's system number one that we could potentially do as our phase three in this lineup. System number two, which is player-owned businesses. This one's, I don't know if it's chunkier. It's definitely more
It's mechanically
complex.
chunkier, but it's not ideally
Yeah.
chunkier.
Yeah.
I don't think we
So
go into specifics, but
yeah, basically we want the player-owned businesses to be engaging little mini game that you guys can do. It will have its own gold and time sink involved with it, but allow you to have another option for gaining gold and resources and, engaging with the world. So, basically, as it currently sits, there are two ways that you will advance. Well, there's one way that you'll start the business. You'll have to buy land for the business to be on, and there will like I would ideally we would like to be able to allow you to put businesses in a variety of areas. So like not just the market square, but like if you want to plop a business that's like in the slums or near the refugee camp or somewhere else. Um, we want to, within reason, give you an opportunity to do that, but keep in mind that the location you choose for the business will affect the cost of starting the business and building the shop, as well as it will affect the type of foot traffic that you will get for different types of businesses. Like if you're, for instance, doing a fishing charter business where you take people out to fish and they pay you to use your boat, right? Don't put that in the farms. Don't put that shop in the farms because most people will go to the docks to find somebody to do that. um, so you're likely going to get less business putting it there. Um, so you'll have to invest some gold to get things started. The other thing that we are considering is like somewhat, it's a little bit different. It's not going to function the exact same way, but somewhat similar to the reputation system in the guilds. We also want to have a brand recognition sort of currency of sorts that is included. So in order to upgrade your business, not just like the space itself, but like connections that you may have, suppliers, depending on what the business is, as well as like the types of staff that you can hire on to help you run the business. All of that will, like, your access to that will be affected by your brand recognition rating. So you're still going to have to spend gold for all of those things, but some of those things will not be available to you if people don't know your business well enough. They don't trust you enough. Um, and then let's see. different upgrade tiers, all that sort of stuff. The other thing that we want to have involved with this is shop quests. So there's basically two ways that you're going to engage with the player-owned business mechanic. That is going to be your day-to-day, like running the shop command, basically. Like you'll do a run the shop command, and then depending on your type of business, it will have you run through a series of tasks, and based on how you do with that series of tasks, like it's functioning like its own like medium-sized quest essentially. But based on how you do with those tasks will be your output or your income for that day. And then of course there's going to be upkeep involved for and we're playing around with how we're going to do how we want to do the intervals with that. None of that solidified. Like it could be weekly, it could be monthly, it even could be every time you run the you know run the shop command, that's when your expenses get taken out. So we're playing around with how that will trigger, and what we think will work best, and not just from a balance standpoint but also from a functionality standpoint, because timers, actual in-world timers, are tricky from a coding standpoint. So you'll have your day-to-day running of the shop stuff where you can get gold from, and then there will also be, for various instances, occasional, they're not constant, but occasional business quests. So this could trigger, there could be a number of triggers for it, but like some of them could just be completely random. Some of them could trigger because your brand recognition is high enough. And oh, this connection, like depending on your business, it could be like, oh, the Conservancy Guild has heard about your business and here's good things. They would love to set you up as like they would like either potentially like to sponsor you or be a supplier if you're like, for instance, running a beast taming business. Like, oh, we can supply you with some beasts that we don't really have the bandwidth to train but have been delivered to us. But we want to make sure that this is a good investment for us. Do this quest for us to establish that.
Combat
Right?
encounter for a level 20 card.
um, and so things like that can come into play. And they could be and some of it could be like, oh, it could be literally like, oh, you hear about like this rare like ore that never gets used, or this rare item that like would, if you could get your hands on it and sell it to this benefactor, like yada yada yada. Like some of them could straight up just be like your brand recognition goes up as a result. Like the quests are going to be somewhat varied there, but specific to the business type. um and the way that laborers will play into that is you can hire on, as part of your upkeep, different laborers. You will be able to regularly look at a talent pool, and based off of your brand recognition as well as how much gold you're willing to spend up front and then as upkeep, different laborers will essentially, if it's the run the shop command, the day-to-day stuff, if you have laborers on staff, their stats will augment your roles for that activity. So they will increase the likelihood of you having greater success and making more money, or not if you put the wrong people in the wrong positions. But they can also act as buffs and aids on those quests. So you can actually hire someone specifically to bring on those quests with you, the shop quests, depending on what they are. And they will also aid you in a similar fashion. Um, let's see. I'm just looking through my notes here. I already went over that. Business quests, yada yada yada. Hiring laborers, I went over that. One mechanic that may not be implemented right away, but we are playing around with, is a heat mechanic, is kind of what we're calling it. Basically, you can do shady business stuff as part of this. And well, this is the eventual goal. This may not be part of the initial phase and launch of this, but we would eventually like to get to a point to where like you have an option on some of those business quests, or as part of your operations and choices of like who you build connections with, to potentially do stuff that's a little shady. And the heat, like that could increase your heat on the business, which could cause complications in even your day-to-day running the shop at times, as well as cause complications on some business quests. And if your heat gets too high, it could even result in the crown shutting down your business because they deem it a criminal operation. So, higher risk, but obviously doing the more shady stuff will get you higher reward. A little bit of play there, but that's something that's more of an attack, like an addition, like more of an upgrade to the core mechanic. Um, and then the one thing that we definitely had to go back and forth on to before we reached somewhat of a consensus on it is this mechanic cannot operate efficiently on our side. If we allow you to come up with whatever businesses you could possibly think of, and then we then have to like sit down and think about like, okay, what connections, what sort of vendors, what kind of quests can I make for that business? Like that becomes a scope creep hell. As much as we would love to give you all of the flexibility in the world to come up with whatever creative businesses that you want, I don't want to devote my team's time and energy amongst, like, I can speak for the lore team, right? Because we're going to be writing those quests, those business quests. I would rather not devote the time and effort amongst the other things that my team is doing to have to write a bunch of quests because technically basket weaving would exist in this world and you could make a basket weaving business.
Yeah,
Like,
business types is what he's talking about, Sonder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, business types. I'm not talking about like you can name it whatever, but like basically what I'm getting at is the way that this is going to roll out, and this will be a phasal approach too, is we're going to have a select set of business types you can choose to start because it's the only way we can really properly contain the scope of a system like this. With how involved we want it to be. So, and it's not that you're only gonna have like an option of like one of three businesses. What that means is that as like we will phase in different business types as we go along. And what I can do is, as an olive branch to you all, is if and when we are talking about implementing this system, we will produce a full list of what we are willing to, like, what we can agree to, of like these are all the business types that we can think of that we are willing to make content for. This will be the full list, and however, it's going to start with these three, and then once we get all the content done for these three, we will start working on the next three. So if that way you don't run into a scenario as a player where it's like, oh well, you guys introduced player businesses and only had these three options, so I picked one of them, but now that this other option is available, I would prefer to have a business of that type, and then doing the whole song and dance of like, can I transfer stuff over and blah 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 blah. And so I think the easiest way to do this is we'll create the full list of like business types that we are considering, um, and then we will talk about the phasal rollout of each of those business types, so people can kind of just gauge for themselves what they want to, if and when they want to step into that. I think I covered that roughshod mechanically for the most part. Anything that I missed on that, Fam?
I don't think so. I think you were too encapsulating, but
Fair enough.
I will say so. It essentially boils down to we want you to choose where we go first. Either the crime and legality route of the first suggestion, or the business and ownership and coin gainage and mini gameage of the second route. And that'll be posed to you all in a poll.
Yep. Well, it won't be a poll. It'll be in the survey. Like that's going to be part of
Yeah.
the survey. That
What'll be in the survey?
Okay.
A poll.
All right. All right. Anyway, I just wanted to make it clear that it wasn't a separate poll. It was just part of the survey.
No, it'll be in the survey. Yeah.
Okay. And also like because depending on either way, like, and it's not this is not a situation of like you get to pick one or the other, and that's just the one that we'll get. It's just about which one we're doing
Now.
soon.
Yeah,
Like,
because this is the third feature that we want to do And so yeah,
hopefully within the next calendar year.
yeah, hopefully.
Obviously, you know, most if not all of the Vanguard have, families that they're responsible for. So, especially now. So, real life may throw a monkey wrench into the timing of some of these things, but are we're shooting for that. We're shooting to have these three things done within the calendar year.
Also, elite elite throw out there from Kravik is that business quests or special actions will also allow upgrades to bigger businesses.
Yes. Yes, that will be part of the potential rewards for business quests and such. Um, so to the question of can I contract other players or can I just make a small business that's only me? It really depends on how we implement the laborer system. So basically, if you want to be able to include players, the laborer system will be a more complicated slash cumbersome part of the mechanic. Because the only way that because you're not gonna because basically there's two options. We could have it be a just kind of like a passive thing where like I hire this laborer and they're on staff all the time and the bot can easily account for that and what bonuses they provide and what upkeep they have, which basically treats them more like an upgrade. It's a different type of upgrade to the business than like a separate thing. Or you could have a situation where like you could have like the other option that we considered was a day laborer talent pool. So like every time you go to run your shop, you have the option to then try and hire on laborers and then put them in those slots and pay for them right then and there. And they would only be active for that one instance. Like you'd use them for that day and then they'd go away. That system would allow you to more easily slot in other players. The first version, which is a more of treating them like a passive upgrade, players would not integrate into that well because they're not going to be there all the time. Like there's just no way. So it's really a matter of like which route we go down, which I can include that question into the survey as well of like, look, if you guys really want to do player run stuff, it's going to make the business system overall a little bit more chunky. Um, but if you would rather have a smoother experience, then you're going to have to forego players helping you out with your business.
Yeah, and as Kravik said, we should be able to allow you to hire like NPCs or players with cooldowns, but we would have to look into what that looks like.
Yeah. Um, so yeah. First things first, I want to, I don't want to get too into the weeds because we have one more thing that we need to talk about before we're done today.
And it's a
But
big
if
one.
there are some immediate questions about either of those two systems as presented, I will open the floor for a few and then we will move on because you will be able to I'm going to include a section that is just you being able to type out your feedback in the survey for these things. And like, so you can present your thoughts there as well. Um, yeah, the only thing with the contract thing is like holding the player to that. It's very easy to hold the NPC to a contract, but holding the player to the contract and like,
Yeah, what if you
how do we
contract me and I leave? Like,
right? Like, yeah, exactly. And like, how do we account for that in the system if the system already thinks that you have a buff for this amount of time for this player, but then the player leaves or decides to not be active? Like, it's a whole thing. Um, it's just tricky. It's not impossible. It's just gonna be more complicated if we try to include players. That's all. Um, but yeah. Right now it just looks like Kravik's typing, so I'll wait to see what he has to say. Contract to hit. Wow. Yeah, yeah. There's some nuance there that Kravik is pointing
Also,
out.
even worse if you combine the two ideas, where if you can if you contract someone to hit someone and then you leave the server, that's a scot-free fucking murder.
But yeah. Cool. So I'm gonna give it another minute, and if I don't see any other thoughts or anything like that, then I will move on to the next big conversation chunk that we will end the day on.
The perfect crime. Goodbye, Ingrid. I just wanted this bitch to.
All right, cool. All right. What the heck? All right. Okay, cool. Sure. Okay. Cool, Zane. Um, then I'm just gonna keep it pushing because I don't see anybody else typing any like questions or anything like that. So,
Mhm, mhm.
all right. So the next big conversation piece for today is the prospect of adding monetization to what we're doing. So to just kind of do the preamble about this
The biggest preamble
is
is going to be it's not going to be pay to play. There you go. Half your worries are
well, yeah.
gone now.
No. It's like no. We first and foremost, none of us have an interest in play to pay or
Play to
pay to play.
pay? I'm very interested in
Pay to
play to
play.
pay.
pay, pay to play or pay to win mechanics. We're trying to do our damnedest to like find a good balance there. We have no interest in that. Like we are gamers like the rest of you. We fucking hate that shit too. But we also recognize that like what we're doing takes time, effort, and is frankly in order to do at the level and scale that we want to do it at is going to require even more. Like it's going to require more manpower, and we already have our own. Not to get too in depth in it. We've been paying for some upkeep for the bot for the campaigns for some other things just to like keep the lights on and keep things working as we're building this for the past few 4 years. And so like there's already a material cost to us that exists plus the time investment and effort that goes into it. We're obviously building our staff. We also would like to be able to eventually get to a point to where like we can compensate the people that are helping us even for all the work that they do because they will be asked to do a decent amount. But also, to be completely frank, earning some, not even like we're not trying to be greedy or money grubbers, but earning some money for all of us allows us to better justify spending more of our time to this place. Um, and so like that also will likely increase the speed at which things get done because I can speak for me. It's a lot easier for me to tell my wife that I am working on D&D quests for hours on end when she knows that I'm at least earning some coin for doing that. So,
And I will
and
tell
I
you
bet.
this right now, it's a lot easier for me to run stuff for you when I can say the same to everyone in my life that doesn't understand that my time is mine.
Um, so we have been having lengthy conversations about going about monetization and how we want to approach that, the first big hurdle that affects all of us is Wizards of the Coast. So, mostly myself have been doing a lot of digging into the legality of this for the past couple of months. Um, and essentially, it boils down to two things. If any aspect of our monetization model for this place is seen as a player pays money to get either access to part of the game or get some sort of benefit in game of any sort, it technically is in violation of Wizards of the Coast's licensing agreements. It no longer, like, basically their rule is if it's free to play, it has to be completely like untouched by money.
Or
And
any of
if
its
it's
mechanics can't be related to money.
right, and so with that, and all that is to say is like we are allowed to use any part of their lore and twist it to our ends, and all of their mechanics and all that stuff, as long as none of the monetization affects anything in game essentially. The minute it does, uh licensing issues come up. Now the the thing we could do, which I did look into, I'm just going to give you the full gamut of it. The thing that we could do, that I looked into, was attempting to get a licensing agreement with them, so that way we could do it with their permission. The problem with that is,
Money.
yeah, the one, it costs money to do that process. Two, the odds of them saying no are a lot higher than them saying yes in general. But based off of the amount of lore that we're touching in their IP,
And the kind
and
of lore we're touching in their
right, and the
IP.
kind of lore that we're touching, when it, like, even down to like creatures, like Beholder is technically not covered. Like, we couldn't have a Beholder role in the encounter bot. Um, technically, if we had any sort of monetization that affect
Don't
the
use its
mechanics
dead name.
um, and then things like illithids, and I honestly think things like Warforged are on that list too. Um, so like that could even affect player races. So like there's that issue, and because we touch so much, uh, and would be touching a lot, that's going to present a problem with them approving it. Like, the odds of them saying no are near 100%, and then they're going to shoot back, hey, we'll give you the license if you change these 100 things, which then brings us to, we're going to have to modify a lot of the stuff in the game to be in compliance. And if we're going to have to do that anyway, I'd rather just avoid dealing with Wizards of the Coast entirely and essentially bring the server to SRD 5.1 regulations, and then whatever we have to get rid of, we would have to go through the arduous task of replacing with our own homebrew version of it, so that fidelity isn't completely lost in terms of your experience. Well, Sinatra, I hear you, but it's just a lot of work on our end to to sift through that and replace those, and make sure that they are legally distinct. Because you can't just dupe Warforged as a race and then call them Battle Forged, and that's valid.
Also,
Like,
we have a lot of people who are related to things that are very specific to Woods of the Coast, such as, and I really realize how much of a bad example Takir is. Well, she's a good example, but unfortunately, it's very bad for her existence. But Takir is a Gith. Um, she's not exactly, going to be able to be turned into something else. Like, Gith are a very specific thing from a very specific book. Not only that, but she worships a very specific god from Faerun.
but yeah, so like this presents a hurdle in general, for us, that we need to overcome. And that will require us to not only do the work of replacing all of that content, but as Sonder very accurately pointed out, it being a confusion point for new players. And what that will essentially mean needs to happen eventually, and by eventually I mean probably sooner rather than later. Um, is we're gonna have to start making some investments into building our own things, like our own replacement for D&D Beyond. so that way we can, any changes that we need to make, and frankly any new homebrew that we want to implement, can be housed in a system that is easier to engage with, that is, you can build your sheet in there in something that we've created, and it only contains the stuff that we know do not violate anything, and also only contains our, homebrew as we build upon things, and then can integrate with our bot. So that's a thing. I mean, we were eventually going to have to make an Engramore website anyway for other reasons, so it'll probably be some sort of web thing. But we'll crawl. Like, I'm going to leave that up to the coders. That's very much their problem to help us address. I'm going to have my hands full go sifting through all the content that we need to change. um, but yeah, essentially, for us to be able to financially support ourselves in any way, shape, or form, not even like completely, like this is our full-time jobs now, but like in order for us to be able to support this from a financial standpoint at all, most of it is gonna have to get updated.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I mean, honestly, that part, the lore part, is actually the easiest part for me, Sonder. I have no issues doing that, because the forbidden lore that none of you know about yet mostly
Most of it doesn't
warps.
change.
Most of it is is us warping existing established Wizards of the Coast lore anyway. So really, it's just like, okay, we're gonna have to swap some names around and like change some stuff in our lore documents. Cool, because like Angramore as a world kind of exists in its own little bubble as far as like
Mm-hmm.
other things are concerned. So like that part's the easy part. It's just the like, we have all of this IP content in the bot for encounters and mechanics and player options that might not be available, that we're going to have to make replacements for, and yada yada yada. So,
Yeah.
and even down to items. Items is a whole other thing, because some of those items are actually covered under IP law, which is fun.
Like the
But yeah,
bag of holding.
that one might not be, but it's possible. I haven't seen that one show up on my list yet. I'll put it that way, but I have not gone through it all. But that's the legal complication factor that we will all have to potentially suffer through together, um, in figuring out. But once those changes come over, we are going to, like, that can't be phased. So like, we are gonna have to do a lot of that in one shot. So there will be a lot of prep work in the background, and then it will be like a big period of like, hey, we're updating everything. I mean, we can, but it's really, um
Well, it's about effort and monetization, right? Like, we can't put effort
right.
into another thing that then finances another thing without putting effort into it and then wanting to monetize that. Like, if we put effort into our YouTube videos, for instance, or anything like that, we'd have to have something to do for them and put effort into them and then also finance
And
them to make
every
sure
hour that
they're
we spend
better.
on that is an hour that we don't spend here.
Yeah. It would basically be like starting another thing
Business.
to fund it and then fund here. We're bedging more
Yeah.
hats on its earning money than this place earning money. Dedicated Engramore YouTuber. I mean, sure. I'm not putting that out of the thing. I just that it would be its own endeavor.
Yeah. And that, like I said, it's diverting time and effort away from here. So like, this place moves slower as a result of trying to attempt it that way. So here's the thing that we can do. However, I can, like, now that I've talked about the problem, I can start to talk about our proposed options for approaching this.
Sorry, Beba. Beba used to be a VTuber. She's like trying to bring out the Beba VTuber to advertise the service. No need for dedicated, but if you're uploading these videos, for example, can you put ads or donations? Yeah, we could do that. Yeah, if that's all you mean, yeah. I mean, we'd have to hit certain
Sure.
criteria, I
I just
think.
don't know
But...
how sustainable that will be. You know?
Yeah, it's not like a sustainable income. YouTube's very fickle, but ads,
Um,
ad monetization, that might not be so fickle, but
but you can't be the way YouTube is you can't even like really start to do ad
unless you
monetization
have a
until you
certain
have
amount of revenue,
right, which you have to basically treat it like its own dedicated thing to get to that point.
yeah. That's why I mean that's why we're offering the Patreon, right? Like that's the first step of it, and like maybe a
Oh, no,
thing
no, no.
about
We're not saying okay, this is not a like we're never gonna do it. It's just like that doesn't solve the problem that we're trying to
yeah, it
solve.
doesn't solve the
That's
get off the ground issue. Like a
um
Kickstarter or a Patreon or something like that is more in the lines of what we're thinking of.
yeah. And also like it's really the other thing is like we want to get a sense like to be completely frank, like part of it is also getting a better sense of like the value of this work to the players, right? So like that's the other part of it is so I can talk about where our heads are at when it comes to how we might approach this is the one thing that we can do is stuff that is external. We can monetize that. So like and interestingly enough, one of the things that does count as external because it doesn't technically affect your engagement with the game is like more character slots. That's a perk that we could add to like a Patreon subscription at different tiers at this stage without changing anything. Like you could also try and like have like basically it'd be these like little side perks like oh like you can join our Patreon and be in this separate chat, but it's also like again a lot of these things are like we now have to devote time to managing this thing to make it worth the money that you're quote unquote spending. Well, not quote unquote. The money that you're spending. I don't know why I put that in quotes. The money that you're spending, we then have to make sure that like, oh, if we create this like separate little like paid community section, that we're actually doing stuff in there to like make it worth it. Which again diverts time and attention away from executing the rest of the game. And so it's just like it's a game of whack-a-mole really. But something like more character slots is simple enough for us to implement as like a paid tier. Also, like simple things like little badges of just like, hey, like you're a supporter because you're willing to give us like $2, and you get a nice little tag like a badge for that just to commemorate that. Cool. Like those little things are definitely doable without changing anything. But the minute we start to deal with one of two monetization models that are normal for games of this type, or that are normal for games, really, is either you have a paywall subscription model, which frankly, I can tell you the consensus in the Vanguard is that is not our preferred one, but it is an option of basically you have a free to play zone in Angramore, and then there are other zones that basically you got to pay a subscription to get access to that have other content. That's one option, but that option would require us to do the whole legal compliance thing. The other option would be to make everything completely free and open, so there are no paywalled zones. And we can add in micro transaction type stuff in here that you can do if you want. For instance, the two things that we have discussed that would likely work in that model is like, I could see a scenario where not everybody can regularly play. I'm one of those people. So like if I get a weekend where I can play, one thing that could definitely get in my way is the long rest timer. So being able to go like, "Hey, I'll pay you $1 to reset the long rest timer for me in this instance." Cool. Like something like that. Same thing with like weekly content. We talked about it like, "Hey, you did your weekly horde, you want to go again because you're not going to be able to play for the next month." Cool. You can pay a certain amount of money to have your party, have their horde timer reset right here now, so you can do it again. Those sorts of things. So throwing in like a couple of microtransaction things, again, trying to do our best to not make it too pay to win. Like we even in that discussion talked about, well, like, okay, how do we prevent somebody from just like like if they want to throw down money and they got mommy's credit card, like just like constantly having long rests all the time. And so like something about like, time interval limiting on when you can use the monetization, or even scaling up the price. So like, you know, each time you do it within a certain interval, like the cost of it goes up. So it's kind of disincentivizing you from doing it constantly and spamming that option. Stuff like that. So we want to be able to fund what we are doing and therefore be able to devote more of our time and energy to making a great experience for you all that requires some sort of money to happen, to monetization to happen. We don't necessarily like the paywall option, but we will do it if you guys prefer that over the microtransaction option. But even in the microtransaction scenario, we are trying to be very, very, very narrow in particular about like what we do that with and how it gets implemented and how often it could be exploited, because we do not want a pay to win scenario to occur if it can be prevented. Um, so that's the long and short of it. In order to do either of those two options, like I said, we're gonna have to do the legal song and dance and update. And so really where our heads are at with it is we want to kind of start, like, we only have a limited number of things that we could really offer that are outside of the game. Like I said, character slots are one of them. That won't get us in any legal trouble. We can set that up now, or now-ish. It wouldn't be like right now, but we can set that up now-ish, and like have a lower tier of like Patreon subscriber that like is just like, hey, you're letting us know that you want to support our efforts in a monetary fashion, and like that's the lowest tier, and then the next tier is like, I want a character slot. I want a fourth character slot.
Yeah,
um
yeah. So one is just like a recognition about you like paying here and being like, we want to support you, blah blah blah, but it won't be much. And then like you get a benefit, like you get like a meta benefit, not like an in-game benefit.
yeah.
Let me pay to start my character at level 5. Hell no. First of
Well,
all, I don't need a wordy fucking every 5 days submitting a level 5 character only to retire them. And second of all, I don't need people
no, no,
saying
no.
it's pay to play.
So I'm gonna out myself real quick. Fant doesn't want that. If Awardy's willing to pay money to do that a bunch of times, Awardy can do whatever he wants, as far as I'm
Well,
concerned.
my main concern is that it's pay to play. You're gaining 2 levels. It's pay to play.
Yeah, yeah. Like if Awardy wants to keep paying for a level 5 character and then retiring them after a week, like it's your money, man. Like I'm not. uh, but yeah. So I know that that's not a ton of detail in terms of where our heads are at, because frankly, like we don't want to start building out like a whole slew of ideas for either option, of like hard monetization. Like right now, this first thing that we're talking about is what I would call soft monetization. The hard monetization would either be the paywall option or the microtransaction option. That will also be a thing that is in the survey for you guys to like kind of voice your preferred version of that, if there was one implemented, and then obviously there will be a space for you guys to provide feedback. Um but yeah, that is the last big chunk to go over. That, like, and we don't even really have a, like, we want to get your feedback on this first, um before we even start thinking about a timeline of implementing anything. I can say that the soft monetization model will be easy enough to implement, um in a few months if we want to go that route. But the hard monetization stuff will take some time for obvious reasons.
Oh, he's cutting out for
And
you, Sonder, not for me.
oh, weird. I don't know why I'm cutting out.
I said he's cutting out for you, not for me, so you're fine. It's Sonder.
No, no, I know. So
But yeah,
I am more than happy to hear more. But, and to full disclosure, I was not looking at the chat while I was
we
talking
should
through
get
this.
sponsored by Factor 75.
um, but full disclosure, I was not looking at the chat while I was explaining all of this. So if there are any questions or feedback that you saw, Fant, that you think needs to be addressed, or if people want to say some things right here and now, again, like I said, it'll be in the survey. You can give detailed feedback there on all of this stuff. But I'm willing to give a few minutes if there's any sort of immediate things.
The only statement that I think we didn't address really was, what if Wizards of the Coast finds the goodwill in their heart, and to that I say they don't have one. But
No, they definitely don't have that. Mainly because they're owned by Hasbro. Even if Wizards of the Coast wanted to do that, Hasbro won't let them. So yeah, we can totally get merch. But that's, again, that requires investment.
it requires an investment. Yeah, like that's the thing, is that we're
All
trying
of
to get
these
the
things
initial
cost
investment.
money to produce.
I also want to put that out there, because I do want to keep reminding people that this is like a beta test. Everyone that is involved in the beta test, if this place does get up off the ground, will gain some benefit. Like, we remember.
Yeah, totally. Like,
Yeah.
the minute we go full bore into, like, this is kind of more of what I would consider to be a business model, the OGs, as I refer to you all often, the OGs will have some sort of boon for toughing it out with us while we kind of stumble through figuring this out. So, but we also need to get an idea. I would like to. I would like to personally get an idea of, like, you know, where people's heads are at in terms of, like, the worth of this experience. And I know that it's not complete, like, it's not considered complete by our standards, but, like, some indication of, like, hey, like, you know what, I'm willing to throw some coin behind this because I enjoy it and I find value in it. And, like, being able to see that enables us to make riskier moves going forward, or invest in other things that will enhance this place and enable us to also get more players, because we can have a better confidence of, like, okay, what we have is something that people actually not only enjoy doing, but are, within this sort of certain percentage point, willing to spend some money on to have access to. So, like, in some fashion. So, like, a lot of this is, like, even this part of it is kind of a beta test. Component pouch plushie. Oh my god, everybody's just going
Yo,
into merch
component pouch plushie, very good idea.
Jesus Christ.
His name's Compo. Dice bag, yeah.
Yeah. And, like, that, and, obviously you guys might want to buy merch for this, but again, I'm not against it. I'm for it. In fact, we've definitely talked about it. It's just, like, you got to have that merch designed, you got to pay to have it produced, like, you got to work all that out, and then, you know, you got to have it up somewhere, which means you got to have a site that has integrations, and that costs money to maintain. So, like, it all stacks, both time and money. So, Zinny? What is, I don't, I might be too old to understand what is, oh, zine? Oh, magazine. Got it.
I mean, the Ingramore magazine has to be called More Ingramore.
Angry.
Ugh.
Ew. I'm not a fan of that either.
Virtual branded weed gummies. I feel like that wouldn't be very profitable, but official artists
that
who
would
do
be cool.
comms for players so that they can have their portrait, and the money goes to the server, would also be done. I mean, yeah, if an artist wants to work for the server to get money, I might do that.
I mean, 100%. Like, and fan can. This is something that I've definitely mentioned to fan. Like, you know, if we have the numbers to pull it off, I actually would love to have a dedicated artist for this place to do the art in this place.
Yeah, I
Like,
want to tell you that right now. That's like my main thing. Like, I really want to visualize the things that happen in the server.
Yeah, and it's just literally like even though there's an option for it in the automated quests, like there is so much going on that needs to happen in the server to get content out because frankly, you all having stuff to do that's interesting is more important, I feel like, than the things that you're doing having pretty pictures attached to them. I'm not saying that it's not important. I just think that the functionality and the actual activity is the thing that you actually care about the most. I could be wrong about that. We can put that in a poll if we feel like. But you know, it's one of those things where it's just like even though we have the option to add art to all of the automated quest sections and stages, like we're more focused on getting the content out there and like converting it and all that stuff, and like we're putting in the art later. And
Angramore social media page like a Tumblr or Twitter and everything to promote the server. Yeah, I mean that's the plan. Like when we want to like push promote, like there's no point in promoting it when we don't have all these features that you guys want up, right? Like would you want to come into the server with these features up and running, or would you want to come into the server beforehand? I think I would say afterwards. But yeah. Well, it's layered. Having cool art of our OCs to show your friends, get you attracted to them further, might boost retention. I mean, that's true. Yeah.
I could see it for you all. I'm saying that my ideal thing is to have a dedicated artist for everything that we're doing, and like that's not going to happen yet.
Yeah, we're talking about
Uh,
promoting the world, not the OCs.
yeah,
The
yeah, yeah.
OCs is definitely a thing.
But
Though.
but yeah, if you want to have a subscription model, if you want to have a subscription tier where like you get like part of that tier is commissioned art for your OCs, okay, like I can start like I'd have to talk to some artists that I know that y'all would I mean or you know y'all can throw in your hats into the ring if you want, but um I need to talk with some of the artists that I know, get some pricing for that and yada yada, work out those deals, and then I'd be able to figure out like what that price point would be to make sure that like you know it's profitable. I'm just going to speak plainly, like it kind of needs to be profitable for us to offer it. Otherwise, it
$5
does the
a
opposite.
month, and then Virgil gives one piece of lore.
Hey,
Yo,
yo.
you know what I actually like? I like the idea that there's a tier where you can pay a certain amount of money and then you get like a monthly subscription to like a stupid, random, not relevant at all piece of lore for Angermore. Like it's an addition, it's not the whole tier, but
Yep.
I like that
I
idea.
mean, something that we definitely can't do right now because I know my team does not have the bandwidth for it.
Pay for
I don't
lore
think Sam
sessions.
either. Is like one thing that we definitely talked about, but like definitely cannot do right now as like a tier is like dedicated character quest development as like a subscription tier. So like you know, you pay a certain amount and like we will guarantee a certain routine flow of like DM quest and like even like regular quest content that is specific to your character story, but that has to come later. I need a bigger writing department and I'm pretty sure Fant needs a bigger community department to be able to s- deliver on that. Like I don't want to offer that, take your money and then not be able to deliver on it. So like that's another idea that we floated around that may or may come in later unless everybody hates that idea.
Angermore and Audible. Yeah.
Oh my god.
I'm not paying for having to hear Virgil. I'm going to tell you that right now.
You're not paying a what now?
I'm not paying to hear Virgil. I'll tell you that.
Well, you wouldn't, but other people might. I could do a whole Tales from Engramore series, and some of it will
Oh
be lore
God.
stuff.
No, I'm
And
joking.
some of it would be lore stuff that players just might find interest in, and little backstory things. But some of it might actually be, you know, retellings of major events that the players were actually involved in. So, well, you don't hear it for free, baby. You work for it. There's the difference.
Angermore
Speaking of which,
anime. That's the goal.
speaking of which, baby, you do owe me some work this weekend. Just be aware of that. Okay, so it
Anger
sounds
more
like there
live
aren't a
action?
whole
Fuck that.
lot. What, M. Night Shyamalan can like pronounce all of our characters' names incorrectly?
Fantasia. Virgile. Like.
Virgile. Oh my god.
Sunder.
Virgile.
Kin would just be kind to be a cunt.
But yeah,
Rakiki.
if we're just floating around fun little ideas for monetization and there aren't like any immediate questions, then I'm fine. Like we could honestly take this. I don't want to keep because I know fans recording this for dissemination
My
later.
storage is actively being eaten.
Yeah, so if we want to keep chatting separate from like the actual Q&A, we can do that in VC. It would be more of an unofficial thing, but yeah.
But yeah, I see that y'all have ideas, but we will post the feedback later on in the week.
I keep trying to tell you, you can't put ads on any YouTube video until you meet certain thresholds and actually get money for it. Like I already looked into it. Trust me.
Anger more TikTok. Well.
Okay. So, cool. Then if there's nothing else, as always, like I said, be on the lookout. Like once the video is uploaded and segmented out into its sections, then the survey will get finalized, and then you guys will get an announcement and a link to that survey. Please, please, please fill it out. This is a rather important one to get feedback on for some of these things. Definitely want to hear.
Sorry,
Oh my
Tararis'
God, you guys
funniest home
don't-
scries.
Oh my god, I can't with y'all.
It's really good.
But as always, we really do appreciate you playing our game, enjoying our game, giving us feedback, and uh, being with us as we kind of, none of us have done this before. This kind of endeavor before. So
I've been
like,
doing it for 3
uh,
years.
yeah. But being with us and being gracious and somewhat forgiving as we muddle our way through certain things and figure out what actually works and what doesn't and what makes sense and what doesn't is much appreciated. We don't want y'all to walk away from this thinking that we don't value that. Even though sometimes you might get an exasperated reply from me when everybody's asking me for lore about what the tea price is in Solaris in winter. But but I really do. I can say for myself, I really do appreciate you guys being with us and playing our game and being a part of our world. And all of this, I hope, is seen from the perspective of we are genuinely trying to do what we can to make this experience better and be able to do it on a grander scale and even more for you all and account for more players and make this world more full and vibrant. So I will leave on that note. Fant, if you have any last words.
Yeah, I mean, just as Virgil said, like I think that we have a goal of getting towards that, and hopefully one day we will find out what the price of tea is in the Solarian winter.
I fucking hate you. All right, y'all. But I'm more than happy to pop into regular VC, so Fan can stop his recording. But if y'all want to chat more in there, I'll get myself some tea first to
Solarian
soothe
tea
my throat. Yeah, Solarian tea.
in the winter.
So as always, thank you guys, and we'll catch y'all later.